It's been a year since states started shutting down businesses, limiting gatherings, and mandating masks. And now several states have announced those days are coming to an end. Joining us from Little Rock, Arkansas Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson, Vice Chair of the National Governors Association. And Governor, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Great to be with you, Chris.
Last month, you changed your public health state directives to guidelines, changed them in effect from mandatory to optional. So now restaurants, bars, gyms, and other businesses in Arkansas can be open even to 100% capacity. Why did you do that, sir?
Well, you emphasized the key point, and that is that it's been a year. And during the course of the last year, we've educated the public as to what's required on public health. Our businesses have taken the right measures in place. We've had a mask mandate in place, and there's just a limit as to how much the restrictions can be placed on business and for how long. They've struggled, they've suffered, and so we want to give more flexibility. It's not the immediate ending of everything. We still have our guidelines in place, and actually there's an incentive to keep control of the facilities because that gives you business tort liability immunity if you follow some of those guidelines. And so we're not having a cliff here. We keep the emergency in place. Our mask mandate is in place until the end of the month. And I ask our public health folks to give me specific criteria as to when we can lift that. And we agreed upon the criteria the public knows that we can lift that mask mandate. Hospitalizations down, vaccines going out, testing's in place, positivity rate down.
So I want to pick up on that, because while you have relaxed the opening of businesses, you are not ending the mask mandate until the end of this month, and then only if the state stays under current COVID spreads, COVID numbers. Why didn't you go along with the governors of your neighboring states of Texas and Mississippi, which are ending the mask mandate right now?
Well, this just reflects that governors can do it different ways. Flexibility, I think, is the model of our states. But for me in Arkansas, I wanted to set a goal and give people hope that we can end the mask mandate if we get to this place and where we feel more comfortable that our hospitalizations are still down. And so we wanted an off-ramp. We didn't want a cliff. I wanted an off-ramp. So we set our goals and expectations. The public knows exactly what we have to do to lift that mandate. Of course, it would be converted to a guideline, and I think masks are going to be with us for some time. But at some point, we have to rely upon common sense and good judgment versus mandates, and particularly when it comes to our businesses. They want to be able to do the right thing with their patrons and customers, but they want to be able to have some flexibility, and that's critically important, and that's what we're giving them, hope and flexibility.
Governor, in this plan, which does make it no longer mandatory in terms of the businesses to reopen 100%, you're going against the guidance of President Biden and his top public health officials. I want you to take a look at what they said this week.
The last thing we need is the Neanderthal thinking that in the meantime everything's fine, take off your mask, forget it. It still matters.
It really is quite risky to completely remove all of the public health measures and just act like there's no virus in the community when we know it is at an unacceptably high level.
Governor, why do you think that you know better than the experts?
Well, of course, if you relied simply upon strict public health guidelines, they would love to have a shelter in place for a year, which we cannot do as a society. And so you have to balance what our public health dictates with the reality that we have to move, we have to get back to school. You know, and President Biden's a perfect example of this. You know, he's leading by encouraging people to take the virus seriously, but at the same time, he's saying vigorously, let's open our schools. Well, there's risk to opening the schools, but it's a risk that is very, very important because we need to have in-classroom instruction. And I'm proud of my state of Arkansas that we went back to school last August and September with in-classroom instruction. And then the president says we need to vaccinate all the teachers. Well, we did that. We moved them up in our priority list early on. And so that's important for governors to be able to lead their state. And I don't think it's fair to say it's Neanderthal type thinking. You know, the history of our country from the Boston Tea Party is freedom, protesting against overtaxation, government control. And so it's pretty natural to have a sensitivity to freedom-loving Americans that say, we'll do the right thing, we know what to do, just give us our freedom back and lift some of these mandates. That's the nature of America, and I understand that. That's not caveman thinking, that's common sense.
But let me just press one more time on this issue of public health. There's no question that Arkansas is in much better shape than you were during that big, terrible spike around the country in January. But you're still not out of the woods, and I would want to put up the latest numbers on the situation in Arkansas. The average of new cases in your state is 373 new cases per day. Hospitalizations, 420. And according to the CDC, Arkansas ranks 45th out of the 50 states in the number of COVID vaccinations per capita. Given all of that, Governor, is this the right time to take your foot off the brake?
It's a good question, and that's the reason we didn't end the emergency. That's the reason I have a ramp. If we see the cases spike up, if we see the hospitalizations go up, then we can reinstitute the mask mandate because it's a ramp. It goes till March 31st with specific guidelines. We can take the action that's needed. And so we're not out of the woods, but at the same time, the key is hospitalizations. And because of improved therapeutics and because of the vaccines, because we have more people following guidelines and taking it seriously, we're in a pretty good position. If it goes the wrong direction, we can take the steps necessary. But people have to have hope. This has been a year, and we have to give them hope that we can work our way out of this emergency. We've got a good balance and a good plan in Arkansas.
Finally, I want to get to this philosophical issue. I only got about 2 minutes here, Governor, but you talk about freedom, and I understand that, and I understand people chafing at not being able to lead their own lives. But, you know, we keep speed limits and we keep seatbelt laws, even though people clearly understand the benefits of both. Don't you worry that, you know, on the one hand, yes, freedom, but on the other hand, this may change people, when they get the word from the governor of the state, you know, you can go back 100%, and within a few weeks you're going to be able to take off your mask, and it may change people's behavior.
We have to be careful about that. You're absolutely right, and we don't want to send the wrong signals. But whenever you look at the necessity of these mandates and the business restrictions, sure, we have seatbelt laws. That can be a permanent thing, but I don't think you want to keep a business that put in an investment that they could be at 100% capacity and you hold them at 50% or 75%. You have to be able to give that flexibility in gyms, salons. And so we're lifting those restrictions, converting them to the guidelines is a good balanced step that we can take. The mask mandate, people understand. Right now, people can protect themselves. If you go out and people aren't wearing a mask, keep your distance from them. You wear a mask. If you have a restaurant that's not following the guidelines, we'll go to a restaurant that is following guidelines. People can make good decisions.
Governor, thank you. Thanks for coming in today. It's always good to talk with you, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Great to be with you today.